Don't ask me that again, okay? You don't have to ask me that again. All right? I'm just letting you know that right now. You don't have to ask me that again if I'm ready to record on a Monday for the football lounge. I'll be ready. Okay? I'm going to be here. I'm going to record. All right? So you don't have to ask it again. All right?
All right. We got Mark Staley over here.
Me. Stop texting me and ask me, are you
Leave
ready
me
to
alone.
record? I'm ready. Because it's not going to change.
Phenomenal.
It's not going to change.
Moment.
I just love when coaches are at their like last. It's
at the breaking point.
When the coach drops stuff like that, or like the classic, like the buck stops with me, or like, you know what I mean. It's over. Like, where's the play-in music from the Oscars? Like, wrap it up. We don't. If I was a reporter at a Brandon Staley press conference right now, or like a Matt Eberflus press conference, after like them just rambling on their nonsense that Matt Eberflus just like talks in circles for like 20 minutes to answer one question, I would just start playing the wrap-up music. It's like, wrap it up, dude. Get out of here. No one cares. Everything you're saying is BS anyways. But just so everyone knows, you don't have to ask the question anymore, okay? I'm here.
Yeah, we're done. I'm a man. I'm 40.
We're getting into Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy, to his credit, had that moment and is still the head coach of Oklahoma State.
Exactly.
He's like 52. He's like in his early 50s now, mid 50s.
Oh, man. Yeah, Brandon Staley just can't buy a win right now in any way, shape, or form, not even at the podium. What a brutal start. But, yeah, lots to cover here from Week 11. I hope you all enjoyed our Friday episode where we covered the breaking news elements that happened during the show with Joe Burrow being gone for the season. Of course, we discussed Deshaun Watson going down for the season, Mark Andrews going down with injury, some big stuff there in the AFC North. We had some more AFC North play this past Sunday and plenty of other headlines, but most notably, the Lions make history. Flacco on the verge of becoming a Cleveland Brown. The Chargers continue to implode, and Tommy DeVito, who's played 4 NFL games, has more multiple passing touchdown performances in his career than Mr. Kenny Pickett. We covered all on the Week 11 recap.
That is a scorned fan. That is a scorned fan. Tommy DeVito, multiple passing touchdowns to Kenny Pickett. I was going to say, the other thing we should just start the show with is like, what, are you okay? Like, Kenny Pickett, are you okay?
That is the first game on the slate here in terms of the hierarchy. I always just go the hierarchy of how the ESPN standings have it, because they order it by game played and time. So that will be the first game we discuss. But I will say the Mike Tomlin quote from this past preseason, which was hilarious because the Steelers always have groups of brothers on their teams. And there's the quote from Tomlin on the sideline where he's mic'd up. He's like, anybody got a brother? Anybody got a brother? He should have been asking, anybody got a touchdown pass? Anybody? Just need one on this team. You can't even get one per game out of Kenny Pickett so far this year. 6 touchdown passes in 9 games played. We are looking up there in Steel Town, that's for sure, as the Browns win 13-10 over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a very riveting performance from both teams. Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting there for Cleveland with Deshaun Watson injured. Brutal game to watch for anybody, and it was the premier CBS game for a lot of people throughout the country. It was out here in the Southeast, so when a Steelers-Browns game is on in the Southeast, you know that it's being pushed out there among the masses. But brutal game to watch for sure, as the Steelers fall when they had just a matchup tailor-made for them on a silver platter there. But yeah, Steelers now 6-4 on the season. The Browns improved to 7-3, 5-1 at home too for Cleveland. So how about that? The dog pound getting rowdy for its team. But honestly, like, trying to be objective, huge win for the Cleveland Browns. I think that was really important for them to go out there and show that they're not just going to lie down and give up on the season despite the Watson injury news. And it was an important win for many reasons, but for it being a divisional win, jumped the Steelers in the standings. The Browns have put themselves in the conversation to say, like, you're not going to count us out. We're still in the running for the playoffs, and we still actually have a good shot to get there. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, this was just as important of a game to win because you have to win the games that are, put out there for you on a silver platter, as this was with Deshaun Watson going down. Now they got this game against Jake Browning coming up that inspires no confidence moving forward, too, against the Cincinnati Bengals. Just brutal. But yeah, I mean, kind of laid it out there at the start that this was not Kenny Pickett's finest hours. In fact, it probably was his worst performance that I've seen from him. And, you could say what you want about Cleveland's defense, and they are probably the number one, if not number two defense in the league. The Steelers, with this performance now, have gotten rid of like all of like their difficult situations for the rest of the year. They play the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Colts, the Bengals now with Browning twice, and one more against the Ravens, and they have the Seahawks. So those two are not toss-ups, but they've gone through the slog. Regardless, that can't happen. I mean, again, I've already said my piece on Matt Canada. It doesn't need to be said anymore. The offense is bad. I don't think he's a professional level play caller. But despite all that, there's no more excuses you can make for Kenny Pickett either when, as we've alluded to, we have the likes of a CJ Stroud doing what he's doing with third string offensive linemen with a rookie head coach. We're seeing Tommy DeVito, as we just mentioned, throwing the football beyond 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and being accurate. It's bad right now, and we're not seeing much positive come out of Kenny Pickett. So to me, that was the story of this game, not being able to throw over the middle of the field. Pat Freiermuth comes back from injury, gets one target in this game. There's just so much bad. Jaylen Warren, huge spark for the team, still only ended with 9 carries. There's just so many things about this offense that are disgusting. But Kenny's got to shoulder his blame of his brunt of the blame in this one. And what disappoints me at this point is that Tomlin isn't willing to call him out, and that's a little upsetting. I mean, Tomlin has been at this point only making excuses for his young quarterback. If this is supposed to be a franchise guy, it's already year 2, getting towards the end of it. You got to start saying, like, you got to start putting his feet to the flame a little bit and letting him know, the issues. But there's a lot of blame to go around, but Kenny deserves some of it for sure at this point.
Yeah, and
that's all I have to say about it.
Well, listen, you're going through it right now, and I will say, yeah, this stat blew me away. 315 quarterbacks. This is from NFL and CBS have 500 pass attempts since the merger. All right, so since the NFL AFL merger, Super Bowl era, 315 quarterbacks have accumulated 500 pass attempts. That means you've played, in at least like a full like season plus of games. So it's a lot of. It's a lot of quarterbacks. There's a lot of qualified quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett is one of them.
And it's a lot of bad quarterbacks in that.
Yeah, and only one of them has thrown a touchdown on fewer than 2% of his attempts. That's Kenny Pickett. So he is throwing a historically little amount of touchdown passes for how much he has played. That is concerning. To me, this game, obviously the storyline is the Steelers because the Browns, their ceiling is still so low right now. The Browns could make the playoffs. Absolutely. This win certainly helps them in that. If DTR is going to play this well, and maybe you switch to Flacco and Flacco can, be just, league average or just below average as a quarterback, the Browns have a good enough roster to make the playoffs, especially if they're going to play defense like this. So that, to me, the story is still more Pittsburgh, and they're more interesting right now because I still think their ceiling is higher because of the quarterback play and the roster construction. And my biggest concern is I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers are where the Bears were when it was the last year of Trubisky starting, to where we said to ourselves, we were recording at that point in time, the most important thing for the Bears to do is to get answers. Is it the quarterback or is it the coaching? Now, the Bears had an offensive coach, and so it was more like direct on this. For the Steelers situation, it's more, is it Matt Canada and the culture offensively, or is it the quarterback, right? Because I would argue, there's a lot of people that argue, the play design and the scheming is just not suited to Kenny's game. They're not making things easy for him. They're not running the ball enough with Warren and doing all these things in play action that just make the game easier for Kenny Pickett's style of quarterback, because we know what style of quarterback Kenny Pickett is. He is Jared Goff as a ceiling, but really in that Kirk Cousins Tua range where you need to be clever, you need to get the ball into the playmaker's hands, and he can be a distributor of the football. And so it's coming to that point now. Is it the quarterback or is it the offensive scheme? At this point, because you drafted him so high and you invested in him, you'd like to say, I want to see Kenny with a new offensive coordinator and a whole new offensive staff and a whole new offensive philosophy going forward. You already have a bunch of the weapons, right? Fryermuth's back. We know I'm on top of this stuff. So you can say to yourself offensively in the offseason, can we revamp the scheme with a new offensive coordinator, go in a completely different direction, and then see is it the quarterback or the scheme? Because if he's still producing at a really low rate with a new scheme, then you know, all right, it's the player. Because that's what the Bears found out, right? It was like, okay, Trubisky, we got rid of Trubisky. Nagy brings in Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, and he was terrible with both. Then you realize, okay, it was both the quarterback and the coach. It was the right move to get rid of both of them, and you move on. So that's where I would feel like you're at if you're Pittsburgh, right? The rest of the season for both teams want to make the playoffs. Both teams want to be above 500. Both teams' ceilings are very, very low. And I would say for Pittsburgh, you have to answer the question. You have to find an answer to the question going into next year. You cannot just bring this squad all together back next year because it's just history is going to repeat itself.
Yeah. And part of that is them giving. See, this is the part of the thing that I think is contributing to Kenny's lack of success is I really do think that they've hammered in from the start that the only way we're going to win games is if you don't turn the ball over, Kenny. So don't turn the ball over. And I think having that hammered in has made him averse to taking any risks. And you have to take risks in the NFL. You have to throw over the middle of the field. You have to try and trust your arm. And I feel like he's just not leaning into that because I think part of it is the coaching staff is showing that they don't trust it. And that's a problem. I think that you need to open things up if you're going to learn and get the answers that you need. And so part of that is opening things up a little bit more for Kenny and letting him make some mistakes because he's turned the ball over the least amount of any quarterback in the league this year. But that hasn't translated to much success elsewhere, right? And so part of that reason is he's not taking any risks. And so you have to find the sweet spot there. But the other aspect is, they're pretty much projecting out that they don't trust that they can win with Kenny Pickett. And when, Tomlin after game said this is exactly how we envisioned the game going. Look, man, if you're going into games with just the plan to win 13-10, it's just not a recipe. Like, and I push back against the narrative that Tomlin and a lot of coaches and even, analysts and stuff have put out there that wins are all that matter. I disagree. I think how you win matters a good deal as well. Not as much as winning, but I think winning is 75%. How you win is 25 because, Steelers could win. We saw this when they went 11-0 in 2020. They were winning games, but how they were winning games was not a sustainable thing. And they went 1-5 down the stretch and ousted first round of the playoffs. It's, how can you win in the NFL? And the Steelers can only win one way, and that is when the defense wins the turnover battle by +2 or higher, and whether the offense can score at least like 13, 14 points. It's just not something that you can live with moving forward if you want to have playoff success. Maybe you can get to the playoffs, and maybe you can get 10-7 the rest of your career. But at a certain point, how you win has to factor into what you're game planning for. And so that is frustrating for sure. The Lions at home make history. First 8-2 start in franchise history since 1962. That's quite a chunk of years, 60 plus years there for Detroit. So congratulations to them because they are obviously riding a hot streak right now. But really, this was just as much of the Bears losing yet again with a lead when they had momentum late in the game. And another game where Justin Fields performed well for 58 minutes and, one play, defines the game, and the fumble out of the end zone for the safety kind of just stalls everything. And, before you know it, the Lions are victorious and the Bears are once again sitting there at 3-8. So brutal game for the Bears. I'd be interested to see what your take is, Mark, from a Bears fan's perspective, because we discussed about how you wanted to see the rest of the year how Fields performed to see whether or not he can make his stamp on being the future for the team and that they would be able to move forward with him. I'm seeing completely conflicting responses from Bears Nation online. Some are saying, I've seen enough of Fields. This is it. That play was terrible. He didn't protect the football. This is it. We're done. I've seen other people say, man, he played really well. He threw the ball exceptionally well at several parts of this game. Had the Bears in the lead against a really good team and had one boneheaded mistake. But we feel like he's the Bear of the future because of the way that he performed. And we want this team to, trade their picks. So I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I am seeing a complete split on how people are making their determinations on Fields after this game.
Yeah, my thoughts are have stayed consistent. I want to build around Fields. I mean, I think the best thing for the Bears to do, success of the franchise-wise, is to either trade that top pick for another bevy of picks, as I said before, an A player and picks like you did with DJ Moore. And then, because you see what happens to your roster when you add A players. DJ Moore is a true A player. He's a difference maker. Montez Sweat, I'd say, is more like a B plus guy. He's got paid like an A because that's the position. But even him, he had a really nice day starting to come into his own. So adding really good players and then also using that value to get more trades next year. You know what I mean? That number one overall pick could be worth a really good A player in the NFL right now in his prime, plus a next year first round pick. That's what, to me, the ultimate goal should be, and then building around Fields. The thing about it is like I've said before, and I'll say it again, the Bears Twitter right now and the Bears online universe is so divided because there is a bevy of riches for the Bears in the NFL draft with the 2 picks. But to me, nothing matters until step 1 is taken care of. And step 1 is firing Matt Eberflus. The Bears are not going to fire Eberflus during the season. They just don't do it. It's not historically who they are as an organization. He deserves to be fired. This is a horrendous loss. The Bears played their best game offensively in a long time, since the win on Thursday night, since the Broncos game, since the Justin Fields was rolling before he got injured. And Justin Fields comes out, plays really, really well. And what happens? Well, listen to this. This is from Doug Coletti. Since 1932, no NFL team with a 3+ turnover margin and 40 minutes time of possession has ever lost that game. Teams were 48. No, what the Bears were doing, they were only the 48th team in NFL history to do what they did yesterday. 3+ turnovers, 40+ minutes time of possession, and they lost. It's the first time that's ever happened. And they lost not because of Justin Fields and that one play at the end. The game was already done. They lost because they gave up 2 touchdown drives in under 4 minutes. That's why they lost. They lost because their head coach is a horrific head coach. They lost because they don't know how to manage the game. They lost because their defensive play calls gave up 2 scores in 4 minutes. That's why they lost. They lost because their offensive coordinator, who probably got the call down from his head coach or whatever their game planning was, to run straight into a line of Lions defenders twice and then throw a deep bomb when all you have to do is get 1 first round and you could win that game. That's why they lost, because they have a poor offensive coordinator who called a better game plan yesterday until he got scared shitless. And then they lost because they have the worst head coach in football. That's why they lost that football game. The Bears' talent is talented enough to win that game. You saw it on display. Look at that Justin Fields throw to DJ Moore for the touchdown. That is talent that you can build around. All right. And then what happens? You lose that game. Now, to the Lions' credit, that is a great recipe for a team that's building towards deep playoff success. You had no reason winning that game. And you did. That is a great, great thing for the Lions. They hung in there. Their coach didn't stop believing in them, and they made the plays offensively when they needed to. The Lions have the best offense in the NFL right now, statistically. That's wild. They're the Detroit Lions. I mean, even the Matt Stafford years with Calvin Johnson, they were an explosive offense, but they weren't the consistently best offense. They can run the ball down your throat. They have elite game-breaking weapons. This Lions team is for real. And my final button on it, again, step one, fire Eberflus. Step two, figure everything else out. I'm not going to worry about who's my quarterback next year until I know who's my head coach. Because if my head coach is Matt Eberflus next year, it does not matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters if Matt Eberflus is the head coach next year because he can't build a winning program. He is incapable at the microphone. He's incapable calling his own defense. He's incapable with his scheme. He is not up to par with his basics because they can't tackle, they can't catch, they can't tackle guys in bounds. And he says he tries to blame the players. He never takes accountability. It's terrible. He's 0-9 against the NFC North. He is 6-22 as a head coach, and he has yet to beat a team with a winning record. Fire the coach. Step two, figure everything else out later. I still believe in Justin Fields. I still think the smart thing to do is to build around Justin Fields. That is the final takeaway from me from that loss yesterday.
And Eberflus has the worst head coaching record of any Bears coach. Is that correct? In history? I think I saw that somewhere where he has the worst winning percentage.
Yes.
Than any Bears coach, which is they've had some rough coaches in the past, and that's that's telling. That's really telling.
The thing with again,
especially with the talent that he's had on his team overall.
To me, the biggest thing is you cannot worry about any other steps. The draft picks, nothing matters until you get the right head coach in there. And whether that head coach is Harbaugh or Ben Johnson or Eric Bieniemy or whoever it might be, you cannot, nothing matters until you get the head coach right. Right now, the head coach is not right. This game was a perfect game in my perfect world of you have to thread the needle that Justin Fields is your guy. You have the talent to win. You just don't have the coaching staff. I know it's a lot to give Justin Fields a third head coach, but I think he deserves it. DJ Moore and this team deserves it. And you can sell a head coach, a Ben Johnson on, let's give you the bag and let's give you DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Cole Kmet. We're going to re-sign Mooney. We're going to draft Marvin Harrison, number 1 overall. We're going to trade the other pick for a bunch of other picks and an A player. We have a nice budding offensive line on the right side with Jenkins and Wright. There's a lot to work with there in a winnable division. The Lions are still the Lions. It's not it doesn't have to be a disaster. And people pushing back on, you need to reset the pay scale. You don't want to pay Justin Fields yet. Justin Fields and his agent have no right to stand on anything that's a contract close to what the Kyler Murrays of the world have gotten. So I would argue you can actually save money still because you might be able to lock Justin Fields up to a 3-year, $100 million deal. You know what I mean? Like you could get him on a Daniel Jones or lesser type of contract, and that's not going to kill you if you get this type of production out of Justin Fields and you're only paying him that type of contract. That's the dream scenario, like a huge, huge dream scenario.
Yeah, very, very true. They're going to have decisions to make at the end of this year, no doubt about it. But I do think ultimately Eberflus, I agree, is the number one priority for this team to take care of that and then move forward with how they're going to approach the rest of 2024 and beyond. But it does seem at least that Ryan Poles' job should be secure for another year. Let him kind of be in on this next hire and figure it out moving forward. The Packers get a win over the Chargers, and this ultimately led to what we alluded to at the beginning of this show with the unhinged Brandon Staley press conference where he lashed out at a reporter for asking about the defensive woes yet again because this team's defense continues to let it down, and Brandon Staley is a defensive head coach. It's his scheme, and he is apparently not going to be giving up play calling duties anytime soon on the defensive side of the ball. So another team that has a decision to make on its head coach moving forward. Of course, a lot of people have also been talking about the rookie Quentin Johnston missing a wide open catch that would have gone for a touchdown.
Keenan Allen dropped one
late
too.
in this game to put He did. He did. So that, Justin Herbert didn't necessarily get all of the help that he could have used from his teammates, but he once again played pretty well in this game, but is let down ultimately by his teammates and his team in general. So the Chargers are now 4-6, same record as the Green Bay Packers. I'm not sure what other takeaways to take out of this game. I know that some people are talking about Jordan Love because he passed for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Ultimately, I still don't think Jordan Love is a very good quality quarterback that Green Bay should feel confident in moving forward. He played the worst defense in the league, perhaps. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert's becoming that guy that it's like free Justin Herbert because once again, this is a Chargers team that I feel we've talked about for the last 20 years, loaded with talent, but can't ever live up to it.
Yeah, exactly right. I think the thing with Justin Herbert is, if you didn't watch the game and you're one of those people who's like, Herbert is, come on, stop making excuses for Herbert, then I can't help you. Like I don't know what else to do for you. I'm not making excuses for Justin Herbert. Brandon Staley, Ron Rivera, and Matt Eberflus all deserve to lose their job. Absolutely, every one of them deserves to lose their job as we sit here today. For Green Bay, I think the thing with Green Bay is, Dan, this is a quality win. Like, they got a quality win in a good performance. We said it from the beginning of the year. I wasn't going to totally judge Jordan Love until the absolute end of the season. And you look what happens. This is a quality win and a quality performance. To me, this is the type of thing that you can say, all right, if he can build on, momentum can get back on his side. Jordan Love, to me, feels a lot like he's in that realm of a Dak Prescott. Like, that's what he's always felt like. You can win a lot of games with Dak Prescott. Some people believe you can win a Super Bowl with a guy like Dak Prescott. I'm not necessarily one of them, but I do believe that Jordan Love if he can build off of this game, this could be the moment where you look at it and say, hey, this is how he, saved his Packers playing career. It started with that run, with that nice win, playing well over the Chargers. Absolutely, Brandon Staley needs to be fired. And it was a quality win for Green Bay to stay alive for that 7th seed in the NFC, which I know seems silly because it's Green Bay and they should be talking about Super Bowls, but where they're at as an organization right now, a 7-seed playoff run with a season like this with Jordan Love, it would mean, I think, a lot to that organization.
That would be huge. If they could pull that off, I think that would be absolutely a success. I mean, if you're a Green Bay fan, like you'll take that all day, especially the way this team has petered off after the first couple games. Yeah, that would be really big. And to be fair, it's the NFC and the NFC North, which there is a lane for that to happen. So if Green Bay can find some sort of rhythm here, potentially they could find themselves there. The Raiders go on the road and the honeymoon. Yeah, they did. They did put up a fight, but the honeymoon phase with Antonio Pierce did end. The Dolphins win 20-13. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the Dolphins have had some pretty epic performances this year. And the Raiders kept it close throughout this game. Only a 7-point win as Dolphins take it 20-13. So, Vegas, to their credit, put up a fight. Aiden O'Connell did seem to take some strides there for the Raiders. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, Devon Achane came back from his injury and then immediately left with another injury. Tyreek Hill left with an injury, but came back, had a monster game. So they had a couple of their star playmakers out early for bits and pieces of the game, but ultimately they had almost their full set of weapons at their disposal and still were only able to put up 20 points. So maybe Miami is cooling a little bit, to go along with the cooling of the temperature as we enter the November-December phase here. And so this is actually something that has been talked about in recent years with a very hot weather team. So I don't want to make it seem like, especially they were at home. So, it's not, but just saying, wouldn't be surprising if we see in December and January ball a little bit less explosive of a Miami Dolphins team than what we saw in September and early on. So that'll be something to keep tabs on. But, not going to belabor the point too much. They won 7-3 or 20-13 and are now 7-3. So they're still very well ahead of the pack. They're ahead of the Bills in the playoff standings. They're firmly in an AFC East, crown positioning. So right now they got to be feeling good about themselves overall. Always like to keep improving in the midst of a loss or in the midst of a win rather than a loss. So all systems go for Miami so far, but I will say like they definitely gotta, keep putting the pedal to the metal and keep the foot on the gas, because if this team does let up a little bit, I'm not so sure that they can go toe to toe with some of the more physical teams that we've seen in the league so far this year. But hey, Jalen Ramsey, with his return to Miami, certainly welcome, as he gets the big time athletic pick to really seal the win. And so maybe this team is getting the boost it needs at just the right time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was waiting for you to mention his name, Jalen Ramsey back. Yeah. And that defense really played well. That Vic Fangio defense really showed up and balled out. Jalen Ramsey, I mean, in a scheme like this, can make plays and could be the difference. When you think about all those quarterbacks Miami's going to have to go through in those big moments, a healthy Jalen Ramsey in big games and big moments, we know he can show up and ball out. And he made his presence known for the first time all season. Now, he missed the whole first 6, 7, 8 games of the season or whatever it was because of the injury. On the flip side, I will say this: Miami still has to beat someone good. They haven't beaten anyone good if you look at their wins versus their losses. So I'm not going to stop holding my breath on Miami. I still believe they're a team that has a lower ceiling. I don't think they have a Super Bowl caliber ceiling yet. They still have time to change that around. But for the Raiders, this is one of those, holy crap, you lost, but you won. With what they went into that game with on the road, they should sign Antonio Pierce to be the coach of this football team now. Mark Davis, the biggest mistake he can make, if the season continues to go like this, where Antonio Pierce has these guys playing hard, punching above their weight, wins another couple games, the biggest mistake he can make would be interviewing other head coaching candidates and screwing this up. The locker room likes him. He's proven he's 3-0 in my book of proving he can be a head coach so far in the National Football League, even though he's 2-1 on his record. I think if I were the Raiders, I would just sign him today and just stop those questions, let that confidence build, and then know your program has kind of the future in place to let then everything else work itself out, quarterback and all those other things.
Well, the owner, Mark Davis, even said earlier this year when he was interviewed that he did regret not signing Rich Bisaccia after his interim stint. So that does lead me to believe that if Antonio Pierce has similar success along the way, that Mark Davis is going to have that recent memory and say, hopefully, I can't make the same mistake twice.
Hopefully.
After I totally failed. So yeah, that is one of the silver linings for the Raiders moving forward. Giants get a big win behind Tommy DeVito, who went back home after the game because he still lives with mom and dad. But hey, that's all. Oh well,
Mama, what are you making after the game?
You see, this was his celebration after the wins. He'd be like, "Hey, we got to win." So he inspired the team to get a victory there as the Giants improved to 3-8 and the Commanders fall to 4-7. So Commanders now stacking a couple losses here on the season. And, all of a sudden their impressive, start with Sam Howell hasn't looked as great. But I will say, I still think that the Washington has the makings in Sam Howell for him to be a franchise guy. I do think that these problems aren't with him. The defense is pretty bad. The offensive line isn't so great, and they could use another weapon on the outside. But I think they do have the makings for a team that's on the brink of turning it around. So in a similar way, we're maybe you just stick with Antonio Pierce in Vegas. Maybe you just stick with the guys you have in Washington, but just change the head coach and move.
Absolutely.
Move
I mean, that's the biggest thing. This is the type of loss where you lose to a really poor, talented Giants team. That's it's a head coach, nail in the coffin loss for Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera is an all-time football guy, an all-time good guy in the NFL. Great story from a solid player to a really solid NFL coach.
Who's had highs. Bear.
But now it's similar to the John Fox, where it's just okay, this is it. You maxed it out. You had your run, and now I think it's time to move on to whatever post-football life for Ron Rivera, or maybe he becomes a defensive coordinator in some aspect.
Yeah, maybe he's the new Jack Del Rio.
Yeah,
exactly.
maybe. But I think that's what you're absolutely right. Washington has pieces. They just need a total like branding, rebranding and a whole new leadership staff around the team because this was such an ugly loss. I mean, the Giants are so bad. They are terrible. And for the Giants fans, you like beating your division rivals, but this is one of those losses where you may really regret it, depending on now like the draft ranking and all this. And next week with the game against New England. This week, that win for them just felt very much like in the Panthers loss, which we'll get to in a second, really felt like it locked up right now the path for the number one overall pick to be the Panthers / the Bears. It really felt like that was the type of win that could seal that up. Like the path opened up even more so. It went from 70% probability to 85% probability that the Panthers are going to end up with the number one overall pick, aka the Bears.
Yeah, every win matters at this point because the number of games moving forward is shrinking and shrinking, and so the Giants, finding ways to win here is going to impact that for Chicago. So I'm, Bears Nation
and
has
they need
reason
Marvin
to
Harrison
celebrate this
Jr.
week at least
more, badly than anyone. They need weapons on New York,
Yeah.
and so falling down the draft board right now is going to be killer to them.
Yeah, there are, obviously every year there's a good number of wide receiver prospects, but they could use like the wide receiver prospect, no question. Cowboys put a hurt on the Panthers there, as you just mentioned. The Panthers are now 1-9, so they are on a 2-game lead for that number one overall pick, which belongs to Chicago. The Cowboys, meanwhile, improved to 7-3. Again, continuing to surprise me a little bit. I did think that this team was not going to have the wins in the win column that they do by this point of the season. So kudos to Dallas. We mentioned it week in and week out. Still not sold on the team. They beat up on a really bad Panthers team. Bravo to them.
Yeah.
But still not much inspiration either. I don't really have many takeaways out of this game. Nothing really changed from my perspective.
No, you don't learn anything about Dallas. You don't learn anything about Carolina, except for the fact that, there has not yet been one real defining moment for Bryce Young that he can really hang his hat on. I mean, he beat CJ Stroud, but even in the win against CJ Stroud, he wasn't like 4 touchdowns, no picks. Will Levis at least had that debut where I still think highly of Will Levis, even though they got shellacked. We're about to talk about them. So there's still like, I'm still waiting for the Bryce Young pop moment. Hasn't happened yet. And for the Cowboys, again, they're still not going to be on my Super Bowl plane, people. I don't care. I have zero faith in the Dallas Cowboys in big moments. They are destroying bad teams and they're like the Dolphins of the NFC, only they have less weapons, and I believe in and I trust in their coach less.
Yeah, yep, I think that's fair. Yeah, the Titans go on the road at Jacksonville, and the first week of the season that I benched Trevor Lawrence in my fantasy leagues is the week he decides to actually put it all together and go off and get 4 total touchdowns.
Yeah,
that's how it goes. 34-14 win for Jacksonville over the Titans. I mean, this is the win that Jacksonville did need, and they were supposed to beat up on the Titans. The Titans are kind of that wounded animal at this point. They've had to turn to their rookie quarterback. They've had to, they had to weather the storm of a less than quality defensive performances with Derrick Henry kind of aging a little bit and showing that. So the Titans were at that position where they're not competing for a playoff spot at this point. So Jacksonville had to seize the opportunity, but to their credit, we've seen teams that can't seize the opportunity. Pittsburgh. Jacksonville did so and won by 20. So, hopefully the only thing I could say about this is Jacksonville has the talent to be in an AFC championship game. Like they have the capability. And we even saw they had the quarterback who could weather adversity in a playoff atmosphere and come from behind and win a game. Like we've seen all of that happen. Hopefully this game will be what this team needed this particular season to finally get it all back on track, turn it around and say, okay, our offense now, if we got that confidence back to where we can actually beat teams with our offense rather than kind of just manage a game and bank on our defense getting some splash plays and our offense getting like 1 or 2 big plays a game. If they can put up a performance like this or even somewhat similar to it moving forward, they're going to probably, I would project, move up into your plane as well in the coming weeks if they can actually, kind of stack these types of performances instead of it being a flash in the pan.
They need to stack, and they need to. I think part of it with Jacksonville is like take any just sort of analyst hat off and just like guys and dudes and like simple football brain stuff. It's like, hey, the Texans aren't going anywhere. And I think there's a little bit of that. Yeah. You look around the locker room, if you're the Jags, you say to yourself, like, shit, like, all right, we are in now real danger of not winning this division. Like, let's lock it up. Like, let's put this shit together and let's play a complete football game. And they did. And Will Levis, to his credit, no interceptions. They didn't ask him to do a ton, 2 touchdowns. Like, he played an okay game. The Titans absolutely are like 3 or 4 like A players away. They need talent. Like they need an identity, because the Titans' previous identity was Derrick Henry, run the football, good offensive line. And now that is like 3 years old and that's fallen apart. And now they're identityless and they're a dearth of talent. For the Jags, their identity is finally feeling like, hey, Trevor Lawrence, be Superman. Like, let's go. Be Superman. We talked a lot about who's going to maybe be the MVP this year, who's Superman. Like, it's up for grabs. No one is balling out like Superman. That, to me, like we said about Lamar Jackson after the Thursday game, even in that performance, it's like, when is there going to be Superman? Like, who's going to show up? Is it going to be Mahomes tonight? Is it going to be Jalen Hurts tonight? Who's going to just down this crucial stretch of the next 5 games, before you can start resting starters and things and preparing for the playoffs? Who's going to be the dude who says, you know what? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to put up monster numbers. I'm going to carry my team. I'm not losing anymore. I'm not dealing with this shit. Trevor Lawrence had that type of game, and that's great because maybe it'll be Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he goes on this tear and says, I'm the fucking MVP. I'm the guy. I'm Superman. I'm going to put up 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, and blow bad teams out. Someone do it. Like, someone step up. No one has yet, and maybe it's Lawrence. So tonight you got 2 guys who are very capable of doing it. We'll have to see what happens tonight. But we're still waiting for that. No one's on pace for 35 touchdown passes. And Trevor Lawrence, maybe he can really, really put it together here. The schedule's really workable for the Jags down the stretch.
He certainly has the talent to do so. So, yeah, they've got enough games ahead of them here where they can start to write that story and change those narratives. The Texans at home, CJ Stroud might be the, one of those guys that's in contention for that MVP, but we'll talk about that.
He had a bad
later
second
on
half
in the season.
First time we've seen a bad second half from CJ.
3 picks in this game for him, but he does get the team in the win column with a 21-16 win over Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. So, big win for the Texans. By the way, the Cardinals 2-9. So this is almost in some ways a win-win because Kyler didn't play terribly. It's just, the team as a whole isn't very good. So if they keep, losing and kind of pushing themselves a little bit further down.
They're at number 2 right now. They're at the pick number 2. I'll say this about the Cardinals. They're the type of team that absolutely feels like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the no-brainer. Like, they'll just take him if he's available, depending on how the scouting goes. If Kyler keeps playing this well, I mean, think about, he's coming off the injury. He's playing considerably better than like Deshaun Watson did when he came back last year, and he wasn't even injured. He just had to miss all that time. I've been impressed with Kyler and his return. He had a couple balls bad at the line in that loss to the Texans, and they had a chance to win. And it felt like they just couldn't get it. But also remember, the Cardinals are at a huge dearth of talent as well. They got rid of Hopkins. They don't have the guys. You know what I mean? They got rid of Christian Kirk. Like, where he needs some help. And I think he's playing good enough football. And for the Texans, it's one of those games you look at and you say, we survived. We won this game. That's a great feeling. And if you're CJ Stroud, it's also good to say, hey, I can play poorly and my team kind of stepped up and still believed in me when it mattered. And I did enough then at the end of the game to win it. Those are good learning experiences for a young team and a young quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. Buccaneers on the road at San Francisco. 49ers back in the win column again. 27-14 victory in this one to improve to 7-3 on the season as well. So 49ers kind of picking up where they've they left off. Another really solid Brock Purdy performance in this one. Christian McCaffrey gave them what they needed. Brandon Ayuk had a huge game. And so, the 49ers, once again, kind of getting back to their early season form where they were, playing very convincing football. And so I'd say, once again, they're kind of putting their stamp on the league and saying, yeah, don't forget about us. The Lions are obviously having their year. The Eagles are still firmly in that 1 seed spot, but we're not too far behind these guys and we're still in contention. So I would say that the Lions, the 49ers, and the Eagles are kind of all in a grouping in the NFC, leaving the rest of the conference in their wake right now. That's kind of how I see this. And the Buccaneers, they're 4-6.
They're kind of falling out of the Bucs are kind of falling out of that picture for that surprise team to maybe make the 7th wild card spot. And the Bucs are one of those teams that I can't wait to see what their offseason unfolds like, because they're a team that feels like if it really falls apart here, could go all into a complete, utter rebuild, try to trade up. Like they're such a wild card team as far as what they want to do. Or if they hold it together and find a way to get 7 wins, maybe they keep Todd Bowles, maybe they keep Baker Mayfield. Like they're such a fascinating storyline as far as offseason discussion goes. As far as the team that matters, the Niners, what I loved about this is Brock Purdy completed 21 balls, 21 to 25. He threw 8 to Kittle, 5 to Ayuk, 5 to McCaffrey, and 3 to Samuel. They spread the ball around to their guys. Like, it's like, oh, he hit 8 different receivers. No. They just found their dudes, and their dudes are all healthy right now. Plus, McCaffrey had 21 rushes on 78 yards. It's the same. Samuel didn't get one of those touchdowns. Could have used it in fantasy. But regardless, that is like what you like to see. It's what you like to see from Brock Purdy, right? That's what Brock Purdy, if he's smart, and I think he is, he keeps his job. His life stays easy if he keeps doing that. Get the ball to those dudes. Let them rack up the yards after catch. And all of a sudden, you can look at the box score and go, damn, 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. Well, those guys did a lot of the work. Purdy can be the ultimate distributor if he keeps up playing like that.
100, yeah, absolutely. No, he's the guy in the league that is perfecting that archetype, right?
Yeah,
of the quarterback.
And of the Tua, Kenny Pickett, Kirk Cousins.
Yep. Dak Prescott. Yeah, like he's in that vein, and he's doing it better than all of them. So it's a recipe for success. He's able to get the ball in the playmaker's hands. That's all you need to do. And like you said, they're all healthy now. You can't cover all of the guys. You can't cover Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, and Debo all, with double coverage or, put your special guys on them. You just can't do it. So someone's going to get open.
Yeah, you need that offense to score big too, because what's his name just went out too. The starting Ofunga, ACL.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And so, that's right. I can't pronounce his name, but he's an elite defender.
I think you got it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Elite defender. And that defense takes a hit. Now that defense has a lot of dudes still, and they're going to play well schematically, but all of a sudden you lose an elite defensive playmaker for the season, and it puts a little more pressure on the offense that, hey, maybe that one game where you could have just held them to 13 points now the offense, has to score 27 to win. It's going to be crucial for Purdy and those weapons to be on the same page. And now everyone's healthy. The Niners are kind of like that NBA team that you're like, wow, man, I just can't wait to watch the Suns when Booker and Beal or everyone's healthy and like actually see how it all works. The Niners will feel a little bit like that. If they can get offensively a stretch now where everyone's healthy down the stretch, we'll have a better idea of really what this team is capable of going into the postseason.
All right, we've got 3 more games to get to, plus a look at Monday Night Football coming up after this short break.
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Cards Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Enter Pit Row with Rod Villagomez and Fast Money as we win the checkered flag with NASCAR, Xfinity, and truck race winners and props. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? We've got a double dose of action there. The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Want an analytical take? Nick Gurl and the team at Gridiron AI come to you each week with The Lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellows come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance, looking at all the day's action. Can't get enough of Joe? He comes to you 3 times a week. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip on into the football lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
All right, so
I gotta say something here. Listen.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Matt Eberflus was at doing his press conference. Listen to this. Matt Eberflus, when asked if Montez Sweat, who they just paid a phenomenal amount of money to, should play more snaps. He only played 63% of the snaps for the Bears defense yesterday. In comparison, Aiden Hutchinson, who you'd compare Montez Sweat to, like elite pass rusher, their guy on defense, played 92% of the snaps. You know what Eberflus's answer was? That's just how we do it. We platoon those guys.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate him. I hate him so much.
Look, there have been plenty of teams, the Ravens are one of them that have the Patriots do this a lot, constant rotations of dudes along the defensive line. But you know what they don't do? They don't take their best player on a certain side of the football of the football field.
I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I am not one of those people who likes to like wish harm on people. But that quote makes me think like I want him to get hit by a bus, and that's not fair. Like that's not fair to me. Like the Chicago Bears.
Stop making me do this.
You're doing this to me. That's not fair to me. Fire him so I stop thinking these horrible things.
Oh man,
that is insane.
Yeah.
That's just how we do it. We platoon those guys, and he knows his job is on the line. And he's going to platoon Montez Sweat? For who? It's not like we're the Niners and you have a we got to platoon him so we can Chase Young a snap.
Exactly,
like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
That is,
we got to finish up here.
That is unfortunate. All right, well, let's try and get back on the train here with the Buffalo Bills and their AFC East contest, and it is officially Tim Boyle season for the New York Jets. They finally benched Zach Wilson and put in the backup Tim Boyle there into the starting lineup, but it didn't work very well for the team because the Bills won 32-6. It was a very predictable outcome as the Bills obviously needed themselves a bounce back performance. They got it here against and just an ailing team overall that just can't get much going offensively in New York. So the Bills put a hurt on them 32-6. They, put themselves at least back in the win column, trying to garner some momentum here. They're going to need to get like a 3-game winning streak here to put themselves in a good position for the playoffs. But at least they kind of, stop the bleeding for the time being. And got a win that they desperately needed to get. And the Jets, look, if they're trying to get Aaron Rodgers to come back, it'd be the dumbest thing ever. Like even if the guy could somehow play in December, there's absolutely no reason at this point. Tim Boyle is just gonna play football for this team. Maybe just let it be maybe a little less embarrassing. But that's really it's done. Punt to 2024 and move forward.
Yeah, I don't have much to say in this. This was the most predictable game ever. Like the Bills got embarrassed. They made the firing. You knew they were going to come out and put a hurting on. And if they didn't, then the Bills would be really done. And so the Bills made the analysis of this game easy. They did exactly what they should have done, needed to do. They took care of business. It was great to see. So now they're still alive. And now now those important games for the Bills coming on up still matter. And for the Jets, absolutely – changing to Boyle's the right thing to do because, again, I don't think Saleh should be fired. I really don't. I think Saleh's done a really solid job, all things considered. And I think this is an important thing to just quell the frustrations of the fans. This is the organization saying, we hear you, we're sorry, and we're done with him. Like, we are officially done. And the Zach Wilson experience and probably his NFL career is officially over, and it needs to be. I mean, he has been historically bad. I just wish teams like the Bears would also listen to their fans and stop putting pain on them. The Jets will be bad to watch with Tim Boyle, but at least the fans won't want to kill themselves. Like I want to kill myself when I hear my coach talk.
Yeah, that's press conferences this was not a good week for press conferences, especially for defensive head coaches. Mike Tomlin saying it's not a problem that Jaylen Warren got 9 carries. Tomlin had a very similar response. We don't.
That's just how we do it.
Look at it. You could be in hindsight.
Yeah, it should be fired.
Well, yeah, it's like good Lord, please. Not much more to say on that. The Bills did what they should do. They're 6-5 and getting themselves back on the right track. The Seahawks gave up a very winnable game there against the Rams, and that could be one of those games where the Seahawks look back if they don't somehow make the playoffs, or if they're the 7 seed and have to go on the road to a tough matchup. That's a game that could come back to bite them as they lose to their rival, the Rams, 17-16, largely due to the fact that Jason Myers could not boot through the game-winning field goal and missed it at the end of the game. Geno Smith got hurt in this one. We'll see.
That's why they lost.
Yeah, that is the biggest reason for sure. Drew Lock had to come in, and there wasn't much going for that offense moving forward. Kenneth Walker got hurt.
Oh, yeah.
He might be out because they play Thursday. So they may not have Geno or Kenneth Walker, their top two of their top 4 offensive pieces. And so if they have to roll out Drew Lock and company out there this upcoming Thursday, this loss could mean that much more because they're 6-4. They could be 6-5 before you know it, and really have the pressure on as they kind of stare down the back quarter of this NFL season. So, I didn't really look at this from a Rams perspective because they're 4-6. We don't really expect much of them moving forward here. But for the Seahawks to lose this game, and now they have the 49ers, coming up in a primetime matchup in just a few days with the Cowboys after that, and then the 49ers again, Mark.
Yeah,
this could be a disaster for the Seahawks.
Geno coming back gave him a chance, like put him in a position to get that field goal. They left when Geno went out with the elbow. All they needed was 1 or 2 drives to extend and kick a field goal. And Drew Lock was terrible. I mean, he was not prepared to come in and play football at all. And then obviously with Walker with the oblique injury, it's probably going to miss some time. Definitely going to be hard for Thursday coming back. The goal should be get Geno healthy enough to try to play at home against the Niners.
They need that.
Because it's not that they – or honestly, the other thing they should do is –
it's a divisional game. If it was the Cowboys –
honestly, what they should do is punt on the game. They should punt on it because you should focus on Dallas. Like, get Walker and Geno 100% healthy to try to beat Dallas, because then you do play San Francisco again. Like, you play him again that following week, and then can you be healthy enough to compete with him there? We knew the Niner at this point for the Seahawks, it was going to be a wild card spot. If they want to hold on to a wild card spot, they can't let this snowball into 4 straight losses, because that's what it could end up being. If you rush Geno back, he's not ready. He gets injured again. It could be a real disaster for them. So this could be a really interesting storyline to watch. And credit to the Rams. They saw a crack of an opening. They had no reason to win this game because they were just inept all day, and Stafford was struggling. But then he let him enough on a drive to get that score to put the pressure on Geno having to come back in the game, even though he's injured. Be like, all right, I guess I'll try to be Superman here. And he got him in position for a 55-yard field goal, and it lost. I needed that win from Seattle to complete a parlay to win $100, and it didn't happen. I was very, very upset. And so credit to the Rams for doing that to me. Again, just a lot of heartbreak for me over the last 24 hours. It's a miracle I'm here, but don't ask the question. I'll be here. I'll record. You can stop asking the question. And so that loss for the Seahawks, plus the loss for the Vikings, which we'll talk about here next, and the Rams winning, like, there's now some interesting, everyone's in the hunt, it feels like, in the NFC that's not the Giants and the Bears. You know what I mean? So and the Cardinals. So like that and the Panthers. All right, so those 4 teams. But everyone else feels like they're in the hunt for that 7 seed.
100. Yep, that's
And
exactly
even the 6
right.
seed now, like the 6 seed feels open.
The 6 seed, yeah, there's quite a bit of wiggle room towards the bottom of those standings, no doubt. I feel like I've said 100% like 8 times today. I need to come up
100%.
with a dictionary. Have it here ready up on Google or something for me. By the way, not necessarily the biggest breaking news, but Adam
1000%.
Schefter is reporting. Yeah, John Harbaugh did say at his press conference today that Mark Andrews, there is an outside chance that he could return this season from his ankle injury. So what Harbaugh initially called a season ender might not officially be a season ender. So that would be a big boost for the Ravens come playoff time. And then also Devon Achane has a chance to play this upcoming Friday per Mike McDaniel. He said he hasn't ruled him in, but won't rule him out of the game either. So at least for the Dolphins' sake, they should have a healthy Tyreek Hill and potentially a healthy Devon Achane this upcoming week. If not, looks like he'll play the week after. So that's a good sign there. And for the Ravens, at least they didn't lose Andrews for the entire season. And maybe that even means that even if he doesn't return the regular season, there might be a good chance, like let's say they get a bye or something like that, that he could play for their first playoff game. So that'd be huge.
Keep that hope alive. Keep that hope alive. Yeah, for sure.
The Broncos get a 1-point win at home over the Vikings for their final game here of the Week 11 slate that we will cover. Minnesota with Josh Dobbs put up a fight here in this one, but Russell Wilson, again, inspiring some confidence here that this team is starting to turn things around. They are now 5-5 on the season, and Cortland Sutton for the second week in a row looks like he's like the hottest wide receiver in football right now with what he's been able to do. But that is 4 straight wins for the Denver Broncos, and 3 are against really quality teams. I mean, the last 3 have been the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Vikings. 3 teams that are, in playoff contention, 3 that have very good offenses. So, say what you will, too, about the Denver defense that got absolutely lit up for 70 points against Miami earlier this year. They allowed 9 to Kansas City, 22 to the Bills, and 20 to the Vikings. That's pretty good. I gotta say, like, Broncos are probably that team that overtook the Buccaneers as the surprise, team that might have a fighting chance here at a playoff spot.
Well, they started 1-4, and they've been on a really nice tear. I'll say this about the Broncos in that victory. What I respect about them so much is that they were down for portions of that game, and that game-winning drive late, the game, and that touchdown to Sutton, like, they're a team that somehow just hasn't shown any quit over those last 4 weeks. I mean, same with that Bills game. It felt like the Bills lost that game, but the Broncos kept putting themselves in a position to catch the loss. You know what I mean? And this game, it felt like they caught the win. Does that make sense? Like, they didn't necessarily win this game, but they did enough to be in a position to where when it came down to 50-50, they made the right plays. Is the Broncos ceiling high? No, but it feels like they're moving their floor up. And that's huge as a Broncos fan because you don't have a lot going for you. You don't have draft picks, and you have a ton of cap cap already taken up by the quarterback and a couple other key players. And you want to keep your star corner. When the Broncos didn't blow it up at the trade deadline, I think a lot of us were kind of like, dumb move. But it's starting to pay off. Like, you look ahead, I mean, can they sneak into the playoffs? They have Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Indianapolis, Houston, and Cleveland ahead of them in the wild card spots. I'm not 100% sure, but the vibes are turning around for the Broncos, and that's big. And if you're the Vikings, you look at this and you say, okay, we took one on the chin on the road in a loss. If we can bounce back and not let this spiral, the Vikings are still in a really nice spot to, again, surprise themselves with a playoff run and keep the vibes high, keep the momentum high in your organization. Sometimes it's better, I was the first one to say go into the tank for teams, for the Browns, for the Bengals. Go get a good draft pick like when your season feels over. But sometimes for organizations like a Vikings or a Broncos, you could also look at it and say, the best thing to do for your organizations is to just keep the vibes positive. It can attract free agents. You can find ways, you can learn how to win. The Bears are a team that don't know how to win a game. Like the Broncos are starting to feel like, hey, we're going to be a team by the end of the season that might know how to win some games, and that builds momentum going into next year. The Vikings similarly feel like a team that no one believed in, even though they won a bunch of games last year. Now I still don't believe in them, even though they're going to win less games, but they might still put themselves in a playoff position where your young guys are getting a lot of experience, your head coach is getting a lot of experience, and you don't have to worry about turmoil in your organization. Yeah, the Broncos need to add a lot of pieces still and keep working with Russ. And yeah, the Vikings need to find their quarterback of the future, but both organizations are trending up. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Finally, the Chiefs host the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football tonight.
Love it.
So I'm
Can't
curious
wait.
your thoughts on this. The Chiefs are favored 2.5 points. Probably this was set up for a great week of primetime football because we had that awesome Thursday night matchup that ultimately kind of fell apart with the injuries to Burrow and Andrews. But hopefully we can right the wrongs there with the
knock on wood.
Second best, matchup getting in here. The rematch of Super Bowl, this past year's Super Bowl between the Kelseys. And so really excited to see all of the storylines for this game kind of come together. And two of the hottest teams in the league right now, the two teams that seem to be front runners for the Super Bowl this year. So yeah, it's a really good matchup all around. Like I said, it's at Kansas City. They are favored by 2.5 points. This kind of seems like a spread to kind of stay away from because one, it's 2.5. Two, it's the two best teams in the league. But I am curious what your thoughts are on this matchup. I am going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game, however.
Yeah, what you did was a big J journalism move just there. You said the rematch of last year's Super Bowl, because who knows what last year's the number was.
Dude,
I
can't remember that.
I can't remember the numbers to save my life. You did the right thing. You just said it's a matchup of Super Bowl last year's Super Bowl. That's all that matters. I'm with you. I have no idea. Was it 55-7?
It was like 53, 56? Maybe.
I know it was 53 because 50 was Peyton. 50 was Peyton and the Broncos versus the Panthers. That's how I know in my head. It's got to be at least like 57.
Oh, it's 58. It's 58. Yeah.
This year's 58 or last year's 58?
This year is Super Bowl 58.
Okay, so matchup. See exactly.
So it was 57 was last year. Super Bowl 57 rematch.
I like the Eagles in this game. I really do. And here's why. I know for a fact the Eagles secondary is not great, but I also know for a fact that the Eagles offensive line can handle the Chiefs pass rush. So I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think this is going to be both teams flying. I think multiple touchdown passes for Hurts, multiple touchdown passes for Mahomes. But what I think really separates this is the Eagles have elite weapons on the outside that when it comes to it can make a really big play in a big moment. And the Chiefs don't. They have Kelsey and they have a bunch of guys. And I think come late in the playoffs, in a big moment, I'm going to trust Mahomes to make the right play and the right move in a Super Bowl. Even if this is a Super Bowl rematch, we have this again, I probably take the Chiefs. And I do think there's something to build off of, like, whichever team loses this game, I think it'll be, you can spin it positively because if they rematch at the Super Bowl, you can say, hey, we lost this team already once. You can build that underdog mentality. There's a lot of good things to go with that. But to me, it simply comes down to I like the Eagles playmakers to make big plays in this game. I trust them to make big plays. And so I'm going to roll with the Eagles 33-30. I'm going to take the over and touchdown passes for Hurts, over and touchdown passes for Mahomes. Both of them are set at 1.1.5. I'm going to take the over in both. I'm going to take the over in passing yards for both. I think Mahomes is like 285 and Hurts is like 237 or something like that. I think the over for both, it's going to be an aerial assault in cold, slightly wet Kansas City tonight.
All right. Okay. I have a little bit different take on how this game will play out. Obviously, I have the Chiefs winning only because they're in Arrowhead. I basically would pick whichever team was the home team in this matchup at this point of the season. But I also think it's going to be a little bit low scoring. I think 27-23 I just think these teams match up pretty well overall. And I do think that, even if the Eagles approach, which I think would be their best approach, would be to kind of control the line of scrimmage, it's gonna spread things out a little bit more in terms of the time frame, and it's not going to be these big hitting, big play games. I think it's going to be a little bit more methodical, and thus it's going to be a slower paced game than maybe
All
we'd
right.
like. It's still going to be a good one though. Still going to be a quality game. But I think there's a couple turnovers on each side that kind of mitigates that score a little bit. So yeah, that is my prediction, and we'll see how this one turns out. But that'll do it for our episode here on the Week 11 recap. For Mark, I am Dan. We appreciate all of the support that you guys have given us through listening, watching, liking, subscribing, all of that stuff. So appreciate it. We are on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network, so go check out the otother shows at forfantasysakeqc.com. And as always, you can find our content here every Monday, and we'll sprinkle in some Friday shows every now and then as well. But until next week, we'll see you then.